Definitely. We haven't had good weather in a while, but oh well, it'll come back. We
Yes.
had that northern wind coming from down from the Arctic blast, like from the states like New York and Virginia and all of that, and everything was pushing down. So we had a cold winter this year by our standards, of course. I mean,
Mhm.
if the water freezes in the pump, it's really cold. So
Oh, no kidding.
yeah.
Yes.
So.
I love. Do you remember when COVID was ramping up and we started working from home, and there were people that had like the shirt and tie, and then they stood up to get their coffee, and they had on their boxer shorts. Remember those
I was
awful,
talking
terrible,
about. Yeah,
humble moments?
that's what I was talking about.
It's so funny you mentioned that because yesterday I was thinking about that gentleman who was on the national news. I don't know if you'll remember. And his daughter comes just prancing in the
Yes.
room. And then I don't know how young the baby was, but then the baby comes in their little roller, toy. And then the poor mom just she goes in there, she's on her hands and knees trying to pull it out. And you know what? I actually love that
I
because
know.
that is the reality of what life is like.
It's a
And
real example, yes.
yes, and I
It
love
went
that it went
viral.
viral. I hope he made lots of money off of that. So,
It did go viral. It did go viral.
mhm.
Gregory
Greg,
joined us in the chat. So hello, Gregory. Welcome
Hi,
in. Welcome
Gregory. Good
in.
to see you. Or
Just
your
chit chatting
name.
a little bit before we
hi
get
Greg.
underway.
Okay. And if I can just say this real quick, this live is brought to you by the letters F in you and the numbers 6, 7. If you have middle schoolers, elementary, whatever, if you have kids in school, you know what that is. And so, we try to keep this live very, casual because, we got to bring the human back into the workday and into the workplace. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So
Being a
I'll turn it over
resource
to
for
Victoria.
humans, right? Being a
Yes.
resource for humans.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, okay.
Well, I think we can go ahead and get started, and hopefully some others will join. But before we dive in, I want to talk a little bit about who I am and what this live represents for me. I'm the founder of 922 Solutions, Victoria Forsberg. I work with leaders and organizations when culture is strained or trust is thin or growth has outpaced the structure, possibly. So I created HR Rewritten because too many leadership and culture conversations happen behind closed doors or not at all. And the cost of silence is always, I believe, paid for by the people. So we are doing a combined or a collaborative effort here to start saying the quiet part out loud. And today's going to be about leadership, accountability, and culture, not theory, but actually what we've lived. So we consider ourselves experts, and you don't have to call us an expert, but we've lived it, right? For a number of years, all of us. I'm really excited about today's conversation because we're joined by Rod Samra. If you guys were with us last week, Rod was one of the guests on there. And I'll turn it over to Rod, but I want to just say that Rod works directly with leaders on compliance, culture, accountability, and performance. And what I appreciate most about his perspective is that it's practical, grounded, and very honest. He understands how leadership behavior quietly shapes culture, and often without leaders realizing it, which makes him the perfect choice for this conversation. And then, of course, I'm joined by my beautiful co-host, Rebecca Newbury. We call her Becky. And she brings thoughtful leadership and real world insight into how culture actually lives and breathes inside organizations. So Before I turn it over to Rhoda and Becky, just to get things started, I want to remind our viewers that there are no stupid questions. So please don't feel intimidated to type your question in the chat. We want engagement from folks. We want to know what questions and concerns you have. And hopefully we can be that human resource to help you through your difficult time. So with that, Rod or Becky, would you like to say a few words before we jump into posing some questions at the table?
Ladies first. Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Victoria. I just want to mention this is an opportunity for our viewers to be able to even share their nightmare stories. We know they're out there because we have a few of our own. Even though we're HR, we're employees too, and even before we were HR, we were lower tiered employees too, and not that that's any less of an important role. Everyone has a great purpose in the role that they do, and and we're all across the board. There is mutual respect for everyone, and I don't want to identify any particular industry, because really we are all working to live. And everyone's workplace or experience is different because we're individuals. We have our own thought processes, our own emotional responses, our own logic, things like that. And so it's really difficult to say, oh, this is what you should do, or this is what you should do. There's no universal answer. There are theories, there are foundational ideas that you can work off of, but it's very important that that we know that you're each individual with each of your own struggles, with each of your own lives going on, and no one's work experience is an exact mirror of someone else's.
Absolutely.
And so we are here to pull that curtain back, have very real conversations, know that we are here to call out the BS that we know people live every single day, and hopefully inspire some leaders to consider how they're doing some practices and really take deep dives. And really our ultimate goal is that companies will say, hey, we aren't treating our employees the way they should be treated, and maybe we're putting ourselves at the highest risk instead of it being put off on employees being that risk. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Rod.
Thank you. And first, I want to say thank you for the great introduction. I don't have much to add to it. You already covered exactly what I'm all about. But I just want to say, with regard to the topic and the subject that we are discussing today, of all the topics that we can discuss, this is my favorite topic to talk about, just because a lot of people underestimate and don't realize how important or how crucial the role of leadership in shaping organizations and cultures, intentionally or unintentionally. With that said, I just want to give a little bit about the importance of leadership and why it's so important. Because organizational cultures are not some amorphous blob or a mysterious fog that permeates the organization or the team. Organizational cultures are designed by the actions leader choose to take or not to take, and they are the designers, whether they know it or not, and they are the drawers that draw the blueprints of how the cultures is going to shape. With that said, I can elaborate a little bit more about what I want to talk about, but I wanted to see if you guys have any feedback before I can go on.
Well,
I just got a message, Victoria. It doesn't look like they're able to view us on LinkedIn, so I'm not sure what's happening. I just got a message about some people are not able to see us. So if we can take a quick moment and see what's happening there.
Let me see.
Apologize for the delay, everyone. Rod, if you want to continue, I'm so sorry. And then we can look at what's going on, and our viewership on other platforms can still participate in this?
Sure.
It's still, the prompt is still saying that it's going to be starting soon.
It shows in my LinkedIn feed that it is live.
I'll suggest that they exit out and start again.
Probably because mine shows mine.
Yes, it shows that it's live as of 9 minutes ago.
Okay. All righty. We'll keep going.
Okay, well, like I was talking about, leadership plays a crucial role in shaping and creating the culture, whether it's by design or just by leaving it alone and let it grow the way it ends up being. So you either, as a leader, you either play a proactive role in shaping a culture that fits the organization, or you leave it alone and it could, it could be molded into something good or something bad. But leadership has a great role in shaping the culture. Since Edgar Schein, I don't want to talk too much theory, but I want to give you a few practical examples from Edgar Schein's seminal work on organization and culture, and apply it to the leadership role to see how how leaders shape the culture, and elaborate what I have spoken about already. So since Edgar Schein published his seminal work, really serious of work about organizations and leadership and all of that, we as an HR practitioners have been stressing on the importance of leadership. We put in a lot of emphasis as an HR practitioners and HR officers on how leadership plays a very important role and how it shapes the culture. But somehow I guess his work was not heeded, or people did not read his books or whatever. I don't know exactly what happened, but the beauty of his work is that he gives us 6 actions that are shaped by the leader, and those actions have an immense effect on the culture and the way it's shaped. First, it is who we hire. Leaders shape who we hire, right? Because ultimately they are the decision makers on who comes to the organization, who be a part of the team. And why is this important? It is important because are we bringing people who are willing to be a team players? Are we willing people who bring in people who want to learn? What kind of impact? Because as you know, when people come in, they have an impact. Not only the culture impact them, but they also impact the culture in turn, right? So if you're bringing employees that are driven by their own rewards, if you will, by what they want to accomplish, and everybody has those. And I'm not saying it should be ignored or omit altogether, but what's important is, are we bringing a team players, people who wants to grow and mold with the culture and make the culture better? Are we bringing players or employees who can create synergy in the team within the organizations? Because let's face it, we all have our points of strength and points of weaknesses. And the beauty about teams and functioning teams is that it creates synergy, where as individuals, our strengths are highlighted and our weaknesses are mitigated. So if you're bringing players that are win at all cost, don't be surprised if you end up with a cutthroat culture that omits everything, ignores everything, and from compliance and ethics perspective, they look at anything, all these policies as optional. That's one point of Edgar Schein's work. Talks about who leaders hire and how important it is in shaping the culture, and also what leaders measure. We all have our own concept of what is a good employee, what is a success, what's your prototype successful employee, and we all have metrics that we pay attention to when we look at people, right? So are these the metrics that you are emphasizing, and the metrics that are using to measure people performance has a great immense effect on what message you send to the employees. For example, if you look at profitability and profitability alone, we know businesses exist in order to make profit, make money. That's not the point. The point is this the only metrics or the solo measure that you are going to take a look at in order to measure someone's success? Because if this is the only metrics, employees will rationalize bending the rules, win at all cost, and no matter what. This is, and just to give you a real example, since we're talking about real world examples, look what happened at Wells Fargo. If you know the story of Wells Fargo wanted their tellers to increase the customers who are coming to the banks opening accounts and things of that nature. So how they measured the teller's success and whether they're doing a good job or not is how much new accounts can they open, and how come, and how they can bring it. They didn't care about other measures and what happens. So guess what? Tellers ended up opening fake accounts, and it turned out to be a huge disaster, and the bank took a really negative hit in the public court's opinion, and ended up backfiring on them just because the only measure is profitability. So when profitability is the only measure, do not be surprised when you see people bending the rules. So when I say leaders and are the designers of the culture, whatever the culture is, or whether it's an honest culture, ethical culture, compliance culture, or it's not all of that, your policies shape your employees' behavior, right?
Absolutely. And that's a great point. If your leadership is broken, just like you said, if you are not consistent across the board, I mean, you are begging for failure,
Absolutely.
and it's the leaders who are teaching the employees through their actions, through their examples, how much those employees matter, how much they're going to tolerate, how much they, really care. Oh, you're burned out. Oh, that's nice. That's just part of the job.
Yeah.
Or, you hear them talking disrespectfully, to each other. That's okay. We don't care. It's really how they demonstrate to the employees. That's going to determine their leadership styles. And it's going to, unfortunately, show employees, oh, this is what it's like. Great. I'm going to be a great leader. I don't care. And then also, it's also demonstrating how that company actually values their employees.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
And
the big
you
part of
touched
the culture. Mhm.
absolutely, you touched on a lot of points that in his six action that leaders can take shape culture. The leader as a role model to the employees, and how they follow their leaders in his or her behavior is a very important point. I will talk about that in details in a little bit, but this is a great point that you're making, and it's one of the six things that Edgar Schein identified, and as a measure to leadership. So you're absolutely on point, Becky. The other thing is he talked about, the third one is how leaders react to crisis. When crises happen and things that bad occurs, and of course it's going to happen because you don't exist in a vacuum, and things going to happen. But how leaders react to those crises, what they're showing their employees, is very important in shaping the culture. So is the leader trying to be proactive, trying to look at what took place the wrong way, and what, or is he or she trying to blame others, trying to roll the blame downhill. Because if the leader act this way and he or she point fingers at other people or subordinate, guess what? Everybody think this is the way to react, and this is the way to deal with crisis. So the leader's reaction in moments like this has an immense impact on the culture, because it shows others that in moments like this is how you should act, or this is how my leader act, therefore this is how I should react. Just pushing blame down, and everybody, it's a snowball effect. Everybody kind of do the same thing until it just becomes a humongous problem in the culture, so
Great
go ahead.
points. Mhm.
Anything you want to add, Becky?
Well, I think with every reaction, it's definitely a lesson.
Absolutely.
If the employees are seeing kind of these panic responses, they're going to see how chaotic that leadership really is. And really, it's talking about effective leadership, if you will. They will have company-wide town hall meetings, and you've got the CEO talking with everyone, and then you've got someone moderating it, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to take questions from the audience." But you don't get to see the feed and all the questions coming in. And then the employees are like, "Oh, we can submit questions. Where are we supposed to do this at?" Right? But they've disabled cameras, they've disabled microphones, they've disabled the comments.
That's very
And
true.
the questions that they start answering are very generic, very not applicable, very not what the employees are looking for as far as reassurances and corrective actions, very just complacent, generic answers. And then you realize the truth of the matter is these are pre-recorded. It doesn't say it's pre-recorded, but
Yeah.
there is absolutely nothing that they really care about the employees contributing. They're answering safe questions, and again, very demonstrative of the poor culture and the poor reflection that leadership has on employees. They don't care
Yeah.
about their feedback. They don't care about answering the important questions. They are only in it to win it for themselves, and they can't let anyone pop that bubble for them. And so, go ahead,
Yeah.
Rod. I apologize.
No, you're good. That's. I just want to elaborate on what you said a little bit. I love what you said here, because a simple action as a disabled camera or a disabled microphone, you're sending a big message telling the employees your feedback doesn't matter, and whether they know it or not, this is the message, or this is how it's going to be perceived. When you are asking questions, or you're taking a very limited questions that are general in nature, and do not dig deep into what you're saying, you're telling your employees, you're sending the message that I'm not transparent and I'm not willing to talk about things the way they are. And if leaders recognize that and realize how important those little subtle message we send by disabling microphone in a staff meeting or in any type of meeting, it will make you think and rethink about doing that many times. They usually say, "Oh, we don't want distraction," or, "Oh, we might hear a dog bark," or whatever. But really, even with that, you would rather hear distraction, a kid talk. We were talking about that earlier, how this video of a kid running while his dad was doing a live video. I would rather see that than see a disabled microphone any day. I don't know about you guys, but
Absolutely, yeah.
this is the vulnerability you are willing to take, and you're willing to adopt in order to get your message in order to get your message through and show your authenticity as a leader, and how important the employees' feedback coming to you, or what kind of question they ask, you're willing to answer for them. So
Exactly. And then one point I was, kind of think about as you were talking about, um, how many companies out there in leadership are saying, "Oh, transparency. We're all about transparency."
Right.
And it's like, really, when are you going to demonstrate that? I think it's very apparent. You think about these employee surveys, right? Those are not cheap. And
No.
there's a lot of time that is invested in it getting set up with the proper questions, set up with, how what the follow-up supposed to be with the actionable components that local leaders or just whatever leadership is supposed to be implementing to address and improve those issues. How many times have employees participated in those and nothing has happened from it,
Thank you.
right?
Thank
And how many times they're like, do I really have to do this? Again,
Yes.
it didn't make a difference last time. Why am I doing this for the fifth year in a row?
Oh,
Really?
absolutely.
It's like,
Yeah.
leaders, what you're wasting a lot of money on that. And it's not just the software you're using or whatever service you're using.
The time.
Yes, these are employees' hours, that minutes, whatever, that they are investing in this just to have nothing happen. And so it's funny, the leadership, they count on all these metrics, the KPIs and everything, right? But how are any of those really going to be effective? What real information do they really have if they are not taking humans into consideration? There's no way to really gauge, the performance, the productivity, things along those lines, because they are so disconnected from their people. Their views, head count, their views, people first equals people are the first to go.
Right.
It's not about putting your people first, making sure that they're being set up to succeed, empowering them, helping them develop, giving them the career path so they can grow within the company. And I was talking with Victoria not too long ago about this. There is no job stability, right?
No.
Companies are reliant on the employees to give them stability in their profits and their longevity and their client base and everything. But there is none of that loyalty is reciprocated to the
No.
employees. And, hearing all those layoffs last year and even up, the Friday before Christmas, come on, people, that's just
Yeah.
heartless.
Hard.
But again, it's that culture that is tied to that top floor C-suite leadership.
Yeah.
And if they don't care about the people, they're going to realize it and they're going to exit. So, it's so critical. And anyone can just get promoted to a CEO. There's no training. There's, training on empathy and, making sure that they really are giving their employees the right benefits and pay and everything else. It's just, oh, now I'm on the top floor, right? I can plan on buying my third yacht. Sorry, go ahead, Rod.
No, you're good. No, those are great examples and very good illustrations to what we're talking about. One thing I want to talk about, what you said about employees surveys, and you're right, they're expensive, and a lot of people think they're not effective. And I had like civil argument about it one time on LinkedIn. People saying, "Oh, they're waste of money, waste of time, and all of that." I'm like, no, they're not waste of money, waste of time. The reason why they are is because people don't act on them. They don't take those and try to see, okay, what are the patterns that we're seeing here, whether it's satisfaction or dissatisfactions. Where do employees have common concerns and how they analyze? They don't analyze it. And if they hire a consultant or someone from the outside to analyze them and show them patterns and charts and all of that, they are not acting on it anyways. So it is a tool, and the tool is as good as you use it. It's just like anything. It's not like they're not effective or they're ineffective, or they are not good, or they don't accomplish anything, you decide not to use them or not to utilize them in the right way. You're not taking the feedback that you're getting seriously. Therefore, it looks like the tool is not effective, but in reality, is the execution that is not effective, and that's where leadership comes into play. Is, do we look at these things seriously? Do we analyze them? What are the commonality that we're finding in those surveys, and how they are measuring really our employees' satisfaction, and what kind of action can we take as a result of those surveys? So that's what makes them effective or ineffective. But no, that's a great point that you
I have a couple of things I want to add, but first, if I could just jump in here.
Yes.
I don't know what the technical difficulty is. I have a suspicion what the technical difficulty is on LinkedIn. Our moderator in the background, she's going to post the YouTube link so people can maybe migrate over. So we may go a little longer than 1 o'clock if you guys can just hang in there. I have a suspicion that when you register on StreamYard and you want to simulcast into 2 entities, that there's some kind of glitch, because I think it did create a second. There were no people. There was one person registered in the second link, but it may have made the first link inactive. I don't know. I'm not tech savvy. I don't pretend to be tech savvy. So this is my vulnerability, right? I'm embarrassed and
Give yourself grace. This is our second episode.
This is such good content, and I want people to hear it. So Jamie's working hard in the background to try to get the link posted for the YouTube channel. If not, we'll continue and we'll just rebroadcast. So I wanted to say, Rod, I am one of the people that don't believe surveys.
Okay.
And only because, a couple of things, right? I think it goes back to the conversations we've had about various platforms, right? ATS. You only get good information according to what you put into it. So are you asking the right questions that lead you to answers that can be effectively used, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And secondarily, I have seen it more times than not be used again as a weapon against employee. I've seen it try to be streamlined down to, what group said that? What group said that? And, we're going to go, and then it's targeted, which should not be the case, right? If you're going to do an employee survey, it should be valid and reliable. It should be questions that promote people answering simplistically or in depth about actual things that they see going on in the facility. And those are always hard to digest for leadership, for whatever. I don't know if, I have my opinion. I think leaders sometimes have these huge egos that, I run the best company in the world and there are no problems. And what problems there are so minuscule that we don't even need to talk about them. And so we don't talk about them. I think a lot of leaders do have that size of an ego, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
I also think, HR can be a liaison and can bridge that gap, but it comes with difficult conversations. I feel the same way about roundtables. I think roundtables are very effective. And I think without leading people, you can get them to be honest and give you important feedback. And then it's dissecting that feedback to understand really what they said and really what they're asking for or wanting or begging for. And if you do effective roundtables, then people buy into your credibility that they can trust you to disseminate that information upward so that it doesn't become a target or a weapon. So I think there's work in all facets, right? I think it's a a great HR person is a leader, and they are the ones that are the catalyst to bridging the gap between the C-suite and the employees to find common ground. However that happens, I think that's undue pressure on HR.
This is
Yeah.
one of those moments that I want to say, let's cut the crap, because we know leadership does not want to spend the money on employees.
Yeah.
They do not want to invest any money into their employees because of a number of things. And the reality is because, in a sense, it's pulling from their own pockets. I mean, I'm going to be very controversial here. These are the real conversations that we said we were going to talk about. It is, you know, we know that at the end of the year, when they're doing these layoffs, it's from poor business decisions being made on the top floor, the decisions being made that people are the first to go. They want to have that that culture, but they don't want to invest anything in it. They expect the employees to create it among themselves, and if it doesn't fit their agenda, we know they're going to be seeing their way out. These are the real things that are happening. Is it 100% all companies? Absolutely not. But you can identify them by the way that their businesses are going and how they handle it. People first should not be the overall ideology that people are the first to go when things get financially hard. You should be reassessing the practices that of the decisions they're making, vendors are using, all those components. The last thing that should be sacrificed are people, because you let go a lot of people, you are burning out the people who are left there. And
Yeah.
there is zero consideration. And guess what? They could be promised raises, promotions, bonuses. How often are they really following through with that?
And
And then
does money solve everything? Does the
right.
money give, yeah, it's, you can be burned out and getting paid a lot of money. So it doesn't, because work conditions are very important. So
Right. And leadership has the expectations that employees are supposed to be answering emails at 10 o'clock at night. But,
right.
you better not ask to take 2 hours off to take your kid to the doctor.
Absolutely. No, but I mean, what you remember when we were talking about earlier about metrics and how you measure metrics and all of that, and we touched on profitability.
Mhm.
What you said, Becky, is a great example, because okay, you don't want to fund employees development programs, for example, and you measure the metrics that are really going to affect your bonus, because if you do that, you are creating a lot of vulnerability in the organization and opening up doors to unethical behavior and even illegal behavior, when you just want to measure the metrics that affect your bonuses and how much money you get by the end of the year. This is what you said is very great example about what happened with Wendy's. You were talking about, okay, the decisions that you're making ending up costing people their jobs. And exactly what happened with Wendy's, if you go and read about it, Wendy's had to close a lot of branches, a lot of fast food restaurants, and lay off a bunch of people. That was recently in the news, and the leadership never stopped to think the extended hours they open between 12 and 4 a.m. is not it's costing them a lot of money, and it's draining. It's a money pit, and it's not making them money at all. So what they decided to do, and what they decided to launch, ended up affecting a lot of people who could have had a job from, I don't know, from 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. And just close during those hours. That decision that was made by the leadership of Wendy's ended up costing people a lot of jobs and causing a lot of layoffs. So with regard what you said, Victoria, about surveys, and you said you disagree with me, I don't think we are in disagreement at all, because I mean, it's good to be in disagreement. I love it when we don't agree on things. That makes the conversation more exciting. But we are definitely in disagreements. You said, I jotted down a few notes when you were talking. You said they can be used as a weapon. Yes, that will diminish the value of the survey. You said they have to be valid and reliable. Yes, and if they're not, they're measuring what they want you to measure, not the real measurement of the employee's experience,
Yeah.
right? You said, sometimes the results are hard to digest by leaders. Yes, if you have someone with big ego, they just want to hear the good things. They want to sugarcoat everything. No, they're not gonna take criticism as a constructive one. And finally, you said that they are not used in the way that they're supposed to be used. So you and I are on, and that's what makes them ineffective. And that's what make them on face value look, they are useless, and money spending for about nothing. So you and I are on the same page, really, when it comes to that.
We align on many things, Rod. I
Yeah.
probably have yet to see a post that I don't align with you on, and
Oh,
that
you
makes
will.
me feel good.
You will. You
You're the compliance guy, right? I'm like, I'm on target here. I haven't done this for 30 years and just completely misstepped out of my lane. But I think for me, rather than to build a survey and pass a piece of paper or an electronic link to someone and say, tell us what we're doing. I would rather sit down with somebody in a roundtable session. And this goes, I mean, when I do roundtables, I love the C-suite mixed in with the non-exempt employees, right? I
Absolutely.
like it to be very diverse and it comes from all angles because 9 times out of 10, you know, I never understood, and I've seen this more in most organizations that I have been in. There was always a sales team, right? And historically, for me, it's been my experience that the first positions that are looked at to be cut, and now I think we can add HR into that over the course of the last few years. I think companies are thinking because of AI and because of third party platforms, we can eliminate HR because we've got somebody that processes the ATS. We've got somebody that processes payroll. So what do we need HR for? I think those are questions that companies are having. But I think the ramifications of eliminating HR, I think some have already tried it and they're seeing it, right? But
Yeah.
the first positions that I've seen historically in my 30-year career, first position to go sometimes is safety, which I don't get that at all. Trainers, right? And then salespeople. And I've never understood the logic that the C suite thinks about that because what generates revenue for a company typically?
Yeah. The
The
sales.
employees doing the work,
Yeah.
but the sales team, right? Why,
Sales
why
team.
would you cut Why would you cut a salesperson and make one salesperson's territory bigger when they can't even cover the territory that they have, right? How are you going to generate new business? So I don't understand the logic. I've just had to live in it and try to patch it the best way I can. And I appreciate this conversation. And I love to be aligned with you, but I think Becky's right. We do have to start saying the hard things, and if it bruises some egos, I mean, it bruises
Yeah.
some.
Well,
No.
if
Let
it
him.
bruises someone's ego, they know they're guilty. They know that because otherwise,
Exactly.
a true leader would be like, "Oh my gosh, I hope we're not doing that. Oh, we need to reassess this stuff." So, Rod, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. Sorry, I cut you off. The only thing is, it's a tool, and you measure things with it, and it has its pros and cons. The beauty about it, from I see it from my own perspective, is that you as a leader will not have time to sit with an employee, spend an hour asking questions
Yeah.
all the time, and the beauty of it, if you really use it efficiently in the right way, not as a retaliatory tool, like you said. The beauty of it is that it gives you the feedback that you want to get from the employee that you cannot afford or otherwise don't have the time to for it. Now, are there cons to it? Yes, so sure there are cons. People can be dishonest, or they could even be afraid of being retaliated against and give you the answers they want to answer. They don't want, and what you touched on, Becky, is very important. When people don't see results, and maybe historically they have not seen any results, they tend to, even if there is a new leadership in place, and we're like, hey guys, we want you to participate in this because we care about you, and we want you to be happy and see what we can do in order to increase your satisfaction with your job and all of that. They will be cynical and suspicious about it, not because something wrong with what you did, but because of their experience. We are humans, we get traumatized, we get PTSD, and we feel like we tend to generalize, feel everybody use them for the same purpose. So yeah, you can get good results out of them, you can get trashy results out of them,
Yeah.
depending on the circumstances. But it's a great topic for discussion, and you really made me think. So
And
that's,
really, based on something that Victoria said, is HR is supposed to be filling that gap between leadership and
yes,
in the employee experience and everything.
employees.
But how often does HR try to go in there, they're shut down, and HR tries to push back, but really, it's the leadership who gets to make the final call. And then employees are thinking, wow, where's that balance of employee protection and, with the employer protection? Why are the scales so tipped that it doesn't matter if the employees are being treated fairly or given the proper, resources, to be able to succeed? And when HR is going in there and rallying for the employee, it's not because they're trying to be employee heavy. Again, it's HR is there to be that equal balancer, that equalizer, right? And but when leadership shuts HR down, again, that's them demonstrating their value of their people. And so, I wish that HR had more of a voice, and in the actual determination of the next steps forward. But more times than not, HR is shut down and you know kind of left.
So what do you think we can do? What do you think we can do, Becky, to be more present? I Go ahead.
I know. I was going to say, I think it's really when you're going to be doing, pushing back, I think you have to speak their language. You need to
Absolutely.
show
Yeah.
them the numbers. You need to show them what the cost of them turning a blind eye is and maintaining their course. You have to, provide the numbers, not just dollar signs, but, the amount of, turnover, the loss of productivity, everything of that sort. You go in there, you got your guns blazing. Well, I mean, sorry, or I shouldn't use such terms, but you have all your ducks lined in a row. And when the leadership starts pushing back, you can say, "Oh, thanks for bringing that up. I know that's a concern of yours, but look at this chart. Look at what this says right here, or refer to the report you have in front of you." And provide those possible solutions. Of course, leadership hates when you bring a problem to them and you don't have a solution for it. So just be very prepared. Have your facts in line. Have at least 3 different possible solutions, and then, but ultimately, you still have to reconcile yourself that you don't get the final say, and you did your best to push for that change and weren't successful.
Yeah, I
But you
mean,
never know.
Becky makes the really great points, and I harp on it very often in my posts, which is you have, in order to have a seat on the table with C suites and stuff, you have to be able to speak their language. You have to show them, how does it, the dollar sign associated is, anybody can produce a metric, and anybody can show results of a metric, but how do you translate it into the business world and the operational side of the business world is where sets you apart from other HR practitioners. And what you said, Becky, I wholeheartedly agree with you. You got to speak the business language. You have to be a well-rounded individual, understand return on investment and all the finance measures that is used in measuring any investment. You start measuring people in the same by the same lens and looking at it that way. You don't have to become a business analytic person, or but you do have to at least seek the right measures and the right formulas in order to speak the business language. Taking a turnover as an example, what you stated, how much it cost us to lose an employee and replace them with a new one. How much of time, how much of training, how much of development is staying, how much this cost us versus retaining someone. Look at the marginal benefit and the marginal cost. The marginal benefit of retaining an employee versus the marginal cost of bringing someone in and start with training them all over again. How much does that cost, and can you put a dollar sign on it? Those are very important um, formulas and financial measures that HR need to equip himself or herself with in order to be effective in convincing the decision makers on change in course of actions and directions and things of that nature. So I agree with you 100%. um, just to finish the six actions that we were talking about. So we talked about who leaders hire, how leaders react in crisis. The fourth point is what they fund. All right. Are they do leaders have massive effect on how people on the things that they fund. For example, if you are in a culture where you cutting costs, don't expect innovation to spin as a result of cutting costs. Talked about turnover. How does that affect us when employee satisfaction is not something we look at? And how much is that? So what you fund, what you choose to spend money after, and what you choose to throw money on has a great and immense effect on the culture itself, and how it's shaped to be, and that's designed by leaders, know it or not. The fifth one is, maybe I should have talked about that, about how leaders act before they react, but I talked about how they react in times of crisis, but they act. Action is what we have control over. Reaction is how we respond to crisis. Leaders action, and you talked about it beautifully, Becky, is like take civility, for example. If leaders act in a civil manner, employees feel compelled, or at least they get the message that civility is what's accepted at work and uncivility is not. There is a researcher I like to read her work. Her name's Christine Porath, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. And she found in her research, one of her research, that the number one reason for uncivil behavior by employees is the uncivil behavior of leaders toward the employees. And you see, yeah, you talked about leaders being a role model, and what they do is very important. You can't talk about how the company does not condone sexual harassment, for example, if you're harassing every female walking by your door.
Right.
You're not going to be credible. You're not going to sound serious, and everybody's going to look at you as a hypocrite, to say the least. So how leaders behave, the civility, how they carry themselves, how they act around employees, have great effect on the culture itself. That's the fifth point. And the last point he talked about is what leaders reward. I think we touched about it in a little bit, what you spoke about, Becky. If you are only rewarding the performance itself without looking at how did we get to this performance, or what are the shortcuts that we're taking in order to get to this performance. um, you're sending a message that just win at any cost, and that's what happened with VW. We're talking about live world. It just came to my head. VW wanted to cut costs, and they didn't care about how they cut costs, and the pressure kind of came from the top down, and they wanted to cut costs. Well, at the on the assembly line, and where engineers and employees work, technicians and all of that, they ended up violating environmental standards, and they ended violating operational standards. And guess what? From an ethical tolerating unethical behavior led not only to unethical consequences, but also legal and criminal consequences. So this is a great example where leadership can shape and shape the culture and the organization of the culture. So those are the 6 points that Shine talked about, and I like him because I feel like they're not theoretical in nature, but they are practical and they can be applied to any situation. So
And one thing I wanted to just go back to real quick, Rod, talking about rewarding the performance aspect, right? And not really looking at how it got there,
how about
or what was behind it, right? But how often have employees had someone take their credit? So you could, and they're a jerk, they've
very
got egos, and they're very much just power, driven.
me.
Yes. And so they will, be just terrible leaders and put their employees through it. But then they will cash in for those employees' hard work and reap the rewards from it. And then further, pat themselves on the back instead of giving the real recognition and reward to the employees who actually pulled it off for them.
Yeah,
Um,
so remember the first point we talk about is who you hire, what type of
yes.
people hire, who you allow into your organization. And what you said, just jives really well with this point, is that who you hire, what type of people you're bringing, and who you're promoting as well. Not only you can have somebody fall through the crack entering your organization that they don't have the right intentions, but promoting them to and giving them a leadership position is another thing, because you're even more guilty now because you already know who they are and how they think and how they behave. So
Absolutely.
I also think that it's, you struck a chord with me there, Rod, when you said, that leadership sets the culture. How many times have you been in an organization that, the CEO's out of office, or he makes a planned visit somewhere, and the reaction from the employees tells you a lot about how the culture is driven, I think. And in not so many words, I'm saying, when it's announced that the CEO is making a visit to a particular location, do the employees say, "Oh my gosh, it's been so long since we've seen this person. I can't wait to see this person"? Or do they say, "Oh, not again"?
well, how about when a manager leaves the office, like they have a travel trip or something like that, and the employee's like, "Phew, we can breathe today," and it's like, okay, the confetti is gonna come down from the ceiling. I work in a place like that, everybody's like, "Whew, I can breathe today because so and so is not in the office." So yeah. I mean, these are things. I don't know. I mean, we have process of crystallizations in our head, but I don't understand like how people don't see that and don't make them reflect and look in the mirror and say, "What am I doing wrong in order for people to feel about me this way?" Honestly, I mean, as a human being, do you want to be viewed that way?
But do you really think it? I mean, this is getting off on a. I mean, we're going down a rabbit
That's
hole.
okay. It's
These
it's
are
a
the
lot
real
of
conversations.
conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think they honestly? Do you think the majority of leaders in the C-suite, the CEO, do you think they see themselves as some? I mean, I think typically they see themselves as someone that people love when in fact they don't.
But that's, yeah, that's the process of crystallization that I'm talking about. In our head, we adopt what's good for us, and we kind of push to our subconscious the stuff that are not good for us. But I can argue some people like to lead by fear, and they
Yeah.
feel that they are powerful if everybody around them is afraid of them, or if they're not, and if they're happy, therefore they're not doing their job, or they kind of laxing in their performance and all of that. Some people feels in coercive leadership, and I'm not a psychologist. I can't analyze people. I just try to approach things from a human perspective and live by the golden rule: treat the way you like to be treated. And if you follow just this simple rule, I think your leadership and your management effectiveness changes a lot. You said empathy. I'm saying treat the way you like to be treated. Is just different faces to the same coin, really. So,
Right.
can you put yourself in other people's shoes, or you know would you like to be treated that way? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I know Tori and I have had a conversation previously. At what point, and this is something that we will be covering because it's a whole other live in itself, but leaders were once in the trenches. They were the employees. And, they said things along the lines like, oh, if I was ever the boss, I would never treat people this way, or I would do this, I would do that. And what changes along the way that they lose that sight, that they transition, as we were talking, from the light side to the dark side. And what is it that motivates them? Is it something that's just happening because of the pressures of going into that role? Is it private equity owners who are putting unrealistic expectations on? And this is, I think there is obviously a bigger picture to what's happening on that top floor. But somewhere along the way, they lost that human component and the appreciation. And I would love for us to do deep dives into that and find out where that kink, that chain link broke, and where these people got to the point where they are. So
Yeah, and some leaders think that they justify their behavior because they are driven by the mission of the organization. Oh, we have to accomplish these, therefore it doesn't matter how we accomplish them. I had a boss who created a very toxic environment in the organization I was in, and he felt like, oh, because the mission requires us to do that. So people leader, what I'm trying to lead you here is that people can justify their action in so many ways and in so many logics, and find a lot of excuses to behave the way they behave. So maybe one day we'll talk about toxic leadership or toxic workplaces and how they develop.
absolutely.
It's a great topic to discuss. So
I would love to get into that. We need to do a live about that.
yeah, that would be a great topic to discuss.
Ironically, I just got a message that said the LinkedIn stream, they're having trouble, StreamYard's having trouble streaming it.
Oh no.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Did we have any questions coming in through the comments though?
no.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, they can come prepared with those. We can, on our next one and take a moment to address any of those concerns because,
Yeah. And
we want to answer those questions.
yeah, the good news is we're recording this so we can rebroadcast it. And
Also, someone just put a question. It says, in your professional opinions, at what point does it become necessary to escalate a matter? I don't know if you guys want me to answer or you guys want to answer it.
go ahead, Rod.
Go ahead. And Becky wants to say
Go
something.
ahead, Becky.
You can say, I'll follow you, Becky. Go ahead.
Right about the time that it is really affecting someone's performance. And it is, even causing, difficulties within the team, things along those lines. It needs to be escalated. Employees aren't always aware of what their rights are. So really dig into your handbooks. I know that a lot more companies are becoming more and more vague, but employees get that. They know when something is inherently wrong. So, go Google it. Is this really wrong behavior? Because unfortunately, there is that legal versus doing the right thing. And there's that major difference. So if it's either way, take it to your HR person, and they'll be able to say, hey, this is, sadly poor practices of this manager, or whatever the circumstance may be, but here are some ways of perhaps working through it, things along those lines. But I mean, whatever the case may be, always take it to HR. That's what they're there for. It's not human resources because humans are the resources. It's human resources that we are providing resources to help the humans. And sometimes it's not easy for employees to go to their direct manager because maybe that's who they're having a problem with.
And I think that's the question in the chat. The question says, in other words, you can't communicate with your supervisor. And I've seen this a multitude of times, not to cut you off, Becky, but I think another one of my biggest problems that I want to bring to light is most companies that I've been in, we say, we have an open door policy. You can come to anybody that you want to. There's a hierarchy, but if you feel like you can't go to your supervisor, we have an open door policy. If HR is not working for you, go to the GM or go to the CEO or you can do that. But again, I will say we've seen it weaponized, right? We've seen it weaponized against the employee, because then unfortunately they get a target on their back.
Yeah, it's like, our open door policy is we're going to hold the open door for you so you can carry your box to your car, right? Isn't that the misconception?
Exactly. So I think for me, the best advice would be if you feel immediate threatening danger, you absolutely have to go at all costs. And not worry about the ramifications. Otherwise, I would tell you to review what policies there are in place, however antiquated they may be, because this is my soapbox moment. People have handbooks, but they don't look at them on an annual basis, and the policies become obsolete, and the things that we want to hold people accountable for don't even make sense anymore because the world's evolved. But follow your handbook. Report on a hierarchy thing. If it's your supervisor, there should be something outlined in there that you can go a level above, or you should always, 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 always be able to go to HR, and they should be a neutral party. I have no negotiation on that. HR should be a neutral party.
So I
don't know.
So I worked in an investigation, and I could tell you that not only it is your right to contact HR immediately, it is also your right to seek outside agencies such as OFCCP or EOC. And there should be a poster on the wall informing you of that right. Doesn't have to be it's nice to go to HR first to see if they resolve your problem, but you always have that right to seek legal action, seek legal advice provided to you by your government, and it should be utilized when it's needed. I don't have much more to say about this because you guys covered it so beautifully and so well. But any problem, you nip it in the butt, for the lack of a better term. Is just it's better to make it grow. I mean, when I was a senior investigator and I get a sexual harassment allegation or racial harassment allegation assigned to me, and I talk to the person who's making those allegations, and I used to ask some people It's like, okay, so you're showing me a pattern. It's been going on and on and on. Not to blame you, because I am going to look into it, but I was just curious, why didn't you address it at this point, or at this point, and at this point? And a lot of the reaction I used to get, and it's intimidation, really. It was like, oh, well, it started with a joke, and I didn't laugh. I walked away. I thought he got the message, and but then it didn't. I was like, no, you're not gonna get the message until you take action about it. Not your oh, I thought he will get the message by me not smiling or walking away or something like that. No, but the reason why I'm bringing this example, it's important to take action when action is necessary,
Yeah.
and not to say that, it's your fault because you didn't take any action, but you are more effective the earlier you address it.
And I just want to follow up to Catherine in the comments. But doesn't the organization perceive the complainant as the problem? My answer to that is an effective HR person as a leader in the organization does not dismiss what you're saying. They disseminate the information you are giving them to provide factual details to whom else it needs to be communicated to.
It really depends on the organization. Sorry, Victoria, go ahead.
No. I wonder.
It really depends on the organization. If the organization wants to do the right thing and address people the right way in a compliant and ethical manner, they will not discriminate against you, or they would not retaliate, I should say, against you because you filed a complaint, and especially if you try to address it internally first. But that's why, when it comes to in the compliance realm, employers are not allowed to employers are not allowed to retaliate against employees in any action if they file an EO complaint. And this is not just words, because this is put them on a rope and let them know that if you take actions, it's going to be looked at retaliatory. And I say all the time, employee can win the case sometimes, but they lose it because of the way they react to the case. So those are very important things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I think she's feeling the effects that so many employees feel, and that's why, I mean, one of the very many reasons that we've begun talking about all the things, right? All the things. The taboo table. We know in an ideal world that you would think things are fair, but I'm talking about the real world. Is an employee who presents a complaint considered difficult? My answer to that is I would hope not. But my other answer to that is I've seen it happen, not from HR, but when it gets communicated out, then I have found myself to be adamantly defending somebody 2 or 3 months down the road, because then all at once they have a target on their back because, 2 months ago, they brought this to our attention. And so I would be amiss if I didn't say, Catherine, I've seen it happen. I have seen it happen. What I can tell you is I'm a strong enough HR leader, and I have ethical and moral obligations to represent humans in the workplace. Now, I can honestly say, have I always done the right thing? No, but I've always attempted to do what is right and morally sound in my position. And I don't take HR lightly. People talk, and here I go again on my soapbox. People talk and they start saying, oh, what is HR? You guys plan the annual events that we do. You plan all the employee engagement events, and you sign people up for benefits, and you do all this. No, we do the hard stuff too, right? We have people coming to our office that are legitimately filing a complaint. I was just sharing a story with Becky the other day about I had a man come to me that was not in my division. I was not his HR person, but he came to me because he believed he was being sexually harassed by a woman.
It can happen. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely.
100% does happen. And it's like, I had to take that and I had to become involved, even though I was not his HR person. So number one, you've already got a unheard of or not well publicized situation, because you never really hear about women sexually harassing men. Right?
Maybe because I worked in that world with the legal HR and stuff. I've seen it a lot. Not no, not as common as a male harassing female, but it could be female harassing female as well. And it
Yep.
could be male harassing male and female harassing. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
I've seen it all. So.
Just when I think I've seen it all, there's something that gets
yeah.
off going, wow.
I shouldn't say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot of it, you know. So it's just because like I said, I worked in that realm, but I've seen females can harass a male, and it's a human nature by then. And
I'm not trying to be aggressive or assertive, but I can tell you, and I don't speak for, I speak for like-minded individuals with whom I'm collaborating with. So I think I'm fairly confident when I say the three of us on this panel have probably taken so much extensive pride in our work through the years that we can adamantly say, not on my watch. You're not going to be considered difficult on my watch, because I take every complaint as legitimate until we start, weeding through. And, maybe in that I coach you on how to, deliver your message to others, or whatever. But I absolutely take every complaint or issue that someone has with the utmost compassion and seriousness, because it's my job and it's what I signed up for. Do all HR people work in that capacity? I can't answer that.
No.
I know the people that I'm closest to and I consider in my HR circle think basically on the same lines that I do.
No, not everybody do that. And the reason why I say that, it's not because I know every case everywhere, but I do know cases the employer found guilty because they took no action or they tried to intimidate the complainant and all of that. So no, not everybody does that. And it's well documented out there. You can read about it. Companies that are guilty of sexual harassment cases usually are the ones who brought to their attention, and they decide not to do anything about it or take an adverse action against the employee who bring up those allegations. So yeah, I mean, not everybody does that, but thank God for people like you, Vicky and Becky, that are willing to do the hard work and be proactive in those cases.
And really, just a quick point I want to make is, when an employee is bringing a complaint or a concern to you, instead of getting, because HR will get automatically defensive. They'll say, oh, how much of a risk is this and whatnot. Do your due diligence as the HR people. Don't be automatically signed off on this person is now a troublemaker. Use that as a moment to identify a gap in training, in coaching, like Tori was saying. You need to take that moment and say, okay, where are we missing this? Is this happening with potentially other managers too?
This is systemic pattern. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. HR just needs to be proactive. Do your due diligence, stay neutral, and look for the gaps that can be filled and eliminate that risk. But automatically signing someone off, I mean, that's just poor practice, period. So
again, that's what put people in trouble most of the time is, like I said, and I'll say it again, you can win the case. It might be frivolous, no merit to it, but you can lose it by the way you react to it. So retaliation is a real thing, and can make a situation then go away by conducting an honest and fair investigation, and can make it worse by not doing anything about it, or worse yet, uh, take an adverse action against the person who's alleging the complaint. So,
Amen.
Well, we we have surpassed an hour, and I apologize again for the technical difficulties. One of these days, it's going to go flawlessly.
it will. It's ironing things out.
I want to give you both a chance to provide your closing remarks, and then I'll close us out and let you great people be on with your afternoon. But whoever would like to go first.
I volunteered Becky to go first.
Thanks. I think, our goal here is not to cause an uprising, if you will, but it is to bring awareness of the damage that these leaders can be causing. And it's also to let employees know that we do see these issues. They are existent. And we want to empower you, to let you know that you do have rights. Take a little bit of time and look at what you can do for yourself, how you can rally for yourself, how you can, really have that voice. And you are not meant to be just a head count. You're meant to be a human person. And if you are seeing poor leadership, you be the example of what good leadership looks like. And you will have your team members appreciating and recognizing you for being an actual leader. And don't do anything, really, just based on emotion. Just give, before reacting, just give it extra thought. And but don't be afraid to ask hard questions. And you deserve to enjoy your workplace, put in your 8 hours, go home and enjoy your life outside of work. So.
Great words, Becky. I just want to say one thing to sum it all up, what I talked about. Every organization build a culture, and the only question is whether it's by default or by design, right? And it is very important to realize how much of a role, do not underestimate the role of leadership in the culture. And I'm talking about the culture itself with the big broad umbrella, and the subcultures that exist within the culture. You are a leader. Not only the CEO is a leader, but all of us are leaders, and all of us have a leadership role to follow. So keep that in mind, and don't think leadership exists outside you and only for people that are sitting in C-suites. Now, I just want to close by a quote I really love from Gandhi. He said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." In organizational life, this translates to model the behavior you want others to adopt, speak the truth you want others to adopt as well, speak the truth you want to normalize, practice the accountability you expect from others, show courage and hope to your team, and be the example that they can mirror you. That's all I wanted to say.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Rod.
Yes. Thank you both for those comments. And I will close by saying that leadership doesn't get to opt out of culture, and you are shaping it every day by what you address, excuse, or avoid. So if you want a different culture, it starts by having different conversations. And that's why we're here. So if today resonated with you, I invite you to follow the three of us on LinkedIn, also my YouTube channel, and we will be back with you soon. In the meantime, thanks for being part of the conversation today. Visit 922 Solutions and join us as we continue to try to fix what is broken on purpose.
I just want to thank Catherine at the end for her participation and
Yes.
her great questions and encouraging comments. Thank you for your participation. I appreciate it. We all do.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you so much. See you soon, everyone.
Thank you.